Hello, and welcome to We Live for Saturday, your favorite college football podcast. I'm your co-host, Mike, and with me, as usual, is your other co-host, John. John, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing all right. I am in Green Bay, Wisconsin tonight. Was in Omaha last night, Omaha, Nebraska. Now we're moving along, traveling. It's nice that I get time off on Monday so I can record this podcast, the review pod. Wish it was a happier pod. So I apologize in advance to everyone out there that it may be a little somber at times, but we're gonna muddle through and it's gonna be okay.
We're going to find a way to enjoy it.
We will. We always do. It's never
Yeah.
not fun. It's just more fun sometimes for obvious
Yeah,
reasons.
sometimes it's much more fun. Sometimes it's much more fun, but we're still going to have fun.
Yeah, but things are good, man. Just a little tired, but nothing major. Everything's fine. Things are moving along smoothly. What about you? Where are you at?
I am in Western North Dakota in a little place called Regent at a venue called the Enchanted Castle, which is
Ooh.
pretty cool. There's this guy, and it's like a hotel mostly for hunters because
Mhm.
there's really good hunting out here. I'm actually out here with my dad pheasant hunting,
Cool.
and we just got out here today, so having some fun with that. But the guy who owns this place, he decided, he was like, I need a tourist attraction to get. There's this great hunting. Like, how do I get people to come and stay in a hotel?
Mhm.
So there's this thing called the Enchanted Highway, and he makes giant, like 100-foot tall metal sculptures on the side of
Wow.
the road and in front of there's some in front of the actual hotel itself. There's a bunch down the whole highway. So there's like 40 miles, and every like few miles you hit another giant metal sculpture of like a pheasant or like some people or like, or like the one outside here, there's like a warrior, there's like in armor and
Wow.
stuff like that. So
That's
he's
cool.
like a real artist who
Wow.
does this giant metalwork stuff. And it's pretty cool. So if you're ever out in Western North Dakota, you should drive down the Enchanted Highway and check it out. It's a lot of good stuff.
That's
If
awesome.
you ever find yourself needing a hotel out in Western North Dakota, you should stay at the Enchanted Castle.
Yeah. Well, way to promote it. Maybe, not a sponsor, but could be, I guess.
Now a sponsor could be. Yeah, absolutely. Although I don't know how he makes it, man. Because like 4 months a year, if they have hunters all the time, and then the other 8 months, there's like nothing going on. So like, they got to be running this thing on like a shoestring budget. They have to be. But good for him, dude, for doing it. He's doing the Lord's work for sure. And all the hunters who come out here appreciate it.
Oh yeah. I'm sure it's a beautiful. There's something beautiful out there that unless you experience it or grow up around it like you and I did, that you don't have an appreciation for it until you're there.
Yeah.
And it can be a very magical place. It can also be very desolate. Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
But it can.
Yeah. It's lots of empty highway out here.
Yeah, but there is beauty to it for sure. So
yeah.
Well, great, man. That's awesome. I'm glad you're there. I'm glad you're doing it, and I hope hope you have a good time and find a lot of success also.
Yeah. Yeah, we did pretty well today. So having a good time.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah. Well, before we get into this last Saturday's slate of games, I'm just going to go over the usual things. And if you want to find We Live for Saturday, you can find us here on YouTube. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Podcast Addict. You can find us on Twitter at We Live for B1GSat. And you can find Mike here at Alibaba26. And you can find me, John, at Norwegian Gopher. You can also email us if you would like. We Live for Saturday, b1g@gmail.com.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's start off. We're going to get into these games pretty quick, but let's start with some news. Nebraska has made a move at offensive coordinator. I'm not clear if they fired or just demoted Marcus Satterfield.
I think they've just demoted him, but from the chatter I'm hearing from some, people who are, Nebraska insiders, if you will, I guess he's been told to seek employment elsewhere, but he's not being officially fired until probably the end of the season. So, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and Satterfield is a very close friend of Matt Rule's.
Yeah.
So I'm sure it's a hard decision for him to pull the trigger on, but we said it when he was hired, man. He was a bad hire. He didn't have a track record of success. It has been a total disaster in Lincoln.
Yep.
The offense has been a mess for his, entire tenure in charge of it. So Matt Rule needed to make this move.
Yeah, absolutely, he did, and we said it when it happened, when the hire happened. But I'm not surprised, in the way that Matt Rule is kind of letting him down as easy as he can.
Yeah.
But at the same time, Matt Rule understands that, Nebraska, as we all know, anyone who pays attention to the Big Ten knows that Nebraska expects winning, a winning tradition, and expects big things. And so, as every football program in the Big Ten should, but there's a pretty short leash, and you don't get a lot of opportunity to get better. And Matt Rule, that with this move is also making a move for his own career, and his longevity at Nebraska. So if he doesn't fix things quick, and if he wastes a talent like Dylan Raiola, Matt Rule won't have a job, period. So he's got to figure that out.
What's really interesting is his replacement, Dana Holgorsen, the former West Virginia head coach and head coach at Houston. So Holgo is an interesting choice for numerous reasons, but I would say the first thing is that he's an air raid guy.
Yeah.
Dana Holgorsen has run the air raid his entire career. Now, I don't think he's going to install the air raid at Nebraska mid-season, but that's clearly the direction they're heading. And I had a Nebraska fan who tell me, he's like, I did a big deep dive schematically, and it's not really the air raid all the time. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Dana Holgorsen runs the air raid. And I don't think he's going to run a pure air raid at Nebraska right now, because you can't switch offenses mid-season. But if Dana Holgorsen is going to be the offensive coordinator going forward, then it's going to look more like an air raid. Now, granted, Holgo runs the ball a lot more than most air raid coaches do. So it's not that he's the kind of air raid coach who just wants to air it out. But I don't know, man. I'm not going to say it's a Phil Longo to Wisconsin type hire, but I don't know, man. I don't know it'll be really interesting to see where the offense goes the last few games of the season and what they try to do going into next year. Because if they try to full out go air raid, I just don't think it's going to go that well with the personnel they have.
I was just going to say that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I got to imagine that that's not the plan, but I don't know. That's all Holgorsen's really ever done. Yeah. So it's interesting.
Well, at the end of the day, and I agree with you on everything you just said, and we've seen this, when you're changing an identity of a program, like you just mentioned Wisconsin, but even, when Nebraska changed their identity and how well they're still suffering from the fallout of that.
Oh yeah.
But in defense of Matt Rule in this decision, anything is better than Marcus Satterfield right now. To change anything, I think is just good. And if it doesn't work, at least you see that your head coach is willing to do something about it, and that's a step forward, in my opinion. And maybe maybe Holgorsen won't be there the whole time. Maybe he won't be back next year. Who knows? But at this time, you just got to change something, man, because what you've been doing ain't working. And so I applaud Matt Rule for at least taking a chance on somebody and shaking some things up, and who knows, maybe it'll work. We're going to see against USC, and how that'll work out. And obviously USC is incredibly inconsistent and can't finish games. And we've seen Nebraska put up a really good fight against a very good Ohio State. So, and that was under Marcus Satterfield. So if you have a competent offensive coordinator, which maybe, Holgorsen is, I would assume so.
Oh, he definitely is.
Yeah. So then, who knows, man? And Nebraska's got USC and they have Iowa. And we'll talk about what happened with Iowa. Let's just put it this way. That Iowa-Nebraska matchup now, Iowa might not be just rolling on through. Let's just say that. So
yeah,
who knows? We'll see. But maybe it'll blow up. We don't know. I think just the fact that they hired somebody different is a positive, period.
Yeah, I will say the thing about Holgorsen is he's a very good offensive mind. He's been accused in the past of being, how do I want to put this, not exactly attentive to his players' needs. In fact, there are rumors about players going to ask him for help off the field and him turning to the players and going, I don't have time to help you. Get out of my office. Like that kind of thing. So that was one player who alleged that. I forget the guy's name offhand.
Wow.
But he's not known for being, he's not like gonna bring everybody in, make you feel good, build you up kind of coach. He's just an offensive mind. So I think Matt Rule can be that for the whole team.
I was just gonna say that. I was like, I feel like Matt Rule can make up where he might lack in that department.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I do think as a head coach, I think that's part of what doomed Holgorsen is that at a certain point, guys just wouldn't play that hard for him because he's he's not the nicest guy. like he just, this is college football, major college football. And a lot of these guys aren't that nice if we're being real,
well, and but you're dealing with kids still, and they're still developing emotionally.
Yes.
And you have to be able to understand that. And if you're not dealing with pro athletes here, I mean, now obviously people can make arguments for that, but it's still their age. These are kids. So
they'll have to coddle guys a little bit.
Yeah.
So sure. I think that'll be Matt Rule's job, and Dana Holgorsen will be the one yelling at him when they come off the field. That's what I think is going to be happening.
Good cop, bad cop. Maybe it'll work.
Exactly. It could work. It could work great.
Maybe that's what they need.
Yeah. Oh, one other thing before we get into these games. Offensive analyst and former NFL head coach Jack Del Rio for Wisconsin got a DUI.
Yeah.
And he is now, Luke Fickell said he's going to resign. So he will no longer be with the Wisconsin program. I don't know why so many coaches get DUIs. It seems like an epidemic, especially with the amount of money these guys make. You could just order a cab or an Uber or something. I don't
pay for your own personal driver. I mean, I don't know. Have a guy that takes you wherever you want. Yeah.
Yeah. Seriously. Some of these guys have so much money. I don't know why it's arrogance, right? It's arrogance.
It is.
But so Jack Del Rio will no longer be an analyst for Wisconsin. That probably doesn't make a big deal on the field, but it is just one more tick in what's been a season that has not gone according to plan.
Yeah. Things are not looking great in Madison right now. But yeah, and that off-field stuff just obviously does not help. It's only a distraction and creates bigger issues for someone like Luke Fickell, who I'm sure is just furious and doesn't want to deal
because
with
you
that.
tell you beg your players to be responsible. You beg your players not to drink and do stupid stuff. And then if your coaches do that, what kind of example are you setting for the players? So I think it's probably Fickell's probably smart to send him on down the road.
Yep.
But yeah, dumb move by Jack Del Rio.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I hope if he does have a problem, I hope he gets the help he needs, because that was a very reckless decision on his part.
Absolutely, man. And it seems to be happening a lot more, or maybe it just happened a lot, but now we're just hearing about it. So, I'm sure it's been happening.
I feel like a lot of coaches in the last year have gotten popped for DUIs.
It's been a lot for sure. Seems like more than usual. Yeah.
Yeah. There was Denard Robinson at Michigan, and there were a few other ones too.
Yeah.
Right on. All right. Should we review these games?
Let's do it. Yeah. Let's get into it.
Okay. First up, we had the UCLA Bruins 20, the Iowa Hawkeyes 17. UCLA came out of nowhere in this game. The Bruins haven't been able to run the ball all year, but they managed 211 rushing yards against this stout Iowa run defense. Even crazier, they held star Iowa running back Caleb Johnson to almost nothing. Johnson, who was averaging 142 yards per game, had a season-low 49 yards on 18 carries. Iowa coach Kirk Ferentz said after the game, quote, "To me, in a nutshell, they ran the ball extremely efficiently and we didn't," close quote. Hawkeyes QB Brendan Sullivan sprained his ankle in the third quarter. Jackson Stratton came in and led the Hawkeyes on a 13-play TD drive, capped by a Kamari Moulton 2-yard run to tie the game at 17 early in the fourth quarter. But UCLA made a field goal with 4:49 remaining to put the Bruins ahead for good. Kicker Mateen Bagani made the 27-yard game winner, but he also made a 57-yard field goal in the second quarter. 57 yards.
Yeah, it was wild.
Wowza. UCLA was able to win this game despite 3 first-half turnovers. And Iowa scored 10 points off those turnovers, too. Usually that's a recipe for success for Iowa. Even more mystifying for Iowa is they scored on their opening drive and then struggled for most of the rest of the game. UCLA QB Ethan Garbers had a good day as he completed 21 of 24 for 203 yards, just 6 yards per attempt, 2 TDs and 2 picks. Not a great day ultimately, but it was enough. Running back TJ Harden had UCLA's first 100-yard rushing performance of the year with 20 carries for 125 yards, 6.3 yards per attempt. Wide receiver Logan Loya led the way for the passing game with 94 yards on 5 catches and a touchdown. And so it's a monster game for Loya. And Bruins linebacker Carson Schwestinger was the defensive star of the night with 2 interceptions and 7 tackles on the day. And I was wrong. Sorry. Ethan Garbers was 21 of 34, not 21 of 24. When I said it out loud, I was like, that's not right. So yeah, 21 of 34. Iowa threw the ball okay as Sullivan and Stratton combined to go 9 for 15 for 185 yards, but Sullivan had those 2 costly picks. And Iowa had a receiver put up actual numbers as junior Jacob Gill caught 6 passes for 138 yards. So good effort for him despite the loss. John, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, to me, this really came down obviously to the running game, but the key for me that won this game was UCLA's defense was better than Iowa's defense. Period.
Yep.
And you and I think, I don't know if we've mentioned it on the pod, but you and I have been texting and talking back and forth over the last couple of weeks, and we've noticed that it seems that Iowa's defense is regressing as the season is going on, and it's a big problem. Not saying it's a bad defense, Iowa fans, but it is not. It seems to be getting worse, and it might just be incrementally, but it's noticeable now. And you're seeing teams like UCLA being able to throw the ball on you, run the ball on you, that's the craziest part. Someone like TJ Harden, who's a solid back, but he's not Caleb Johnson.
He hasn't had 100 yards in a game all year. Nobody at UCLA has.
Exactly. So this to me is like should raise some alarm bells if I were Phil Parker. It's concerning. And it looked like at the beginning of the game that Caleb Johnson was just going to run away with everything.
Yep.
But, and which I got to say, kudos to him. Johnson broke the single season record at Iowa for rushing TDs. So that's awesome, which of course, I mean, he is a stud, but today UCLA's defense showed up. They were violent. They were swarming to the ball. They were all over. They were fast. They were in position. They were disciplined. Yeah, I mean that to me, UCLA's defense won this game. Ethan Garbers was pretty solid. Again, TJ Harden had a career game, but that UCLA defense was it, man. Like I have not seen a defense like this. I mean, I guess Michigan State did a good job of it too, but Caleb Johnson after that first quarter was just non-existent.
Nothing.
Essentially.
I mean, they shut him down. It was wild.
Yep. So kudos to the Bruins, man. I'm very impressed, especially to come back after those three turnovers, 2 interceptions, 1 fumble. Obviously, Brendan Sullivan also 2 interceptions and 1 fumble. So just a messy day there for both of them. But yeah, I'm very impressed with the Bruins. I think that Iowa has some things to look at to finish out this season, because I know that it looks like a pretty favorable schedule with Maryland and Nebraska. And I know this isn't a preview pod, but now if they continue to regress, especially on the defensive side of the ball, there's no saying that they're gonna win those games. They're looking more. I think they should be favored against Maryland, and I do think they should probably be favored against Nebraska. But would it?
They were favored against UCLA too.
Yeah, and now after seeing how this, what they did last Friday, I mean, would it surprise me if they lost one or both of those games? No, and I think Nebraska is going to come out swinging because it's a big rivalry game. So, yeah, man. I'd be nervous if I were the Hawkeyes right now. They were projected to go 9-3 to 10-2, 11-1. I heard, so yeah.
I mean, Iowa was supposed to make the college football playoff this year.
Yeah. Yep.
They had the schedule. They had a generational running back, what was supposed to be an upgrade at quarterback, and a stout defense. But Iowa has struggled at times, and they seem to be getting worse as the year goes on. I mean, this is not the same Iowa team we saw in September. That team was clicking, and like they did lose the Iowa State game, but that team was still largely clicking and really doing it on both sides of the ball. And in these last few weeks, it's just really come apart at the seams a little bit. And for Iowa to be 6-4 against one of the easiest schedules they'll ever get, the easiest schedule probably they'll ever get.
Yeah.
That's rough. And it does make you like, yes, they won 10 games last year or whatever, but they should have been set up to win more games this year. And this regression does make, I think there's a lot of consternation in Iowa City right now. And was the offense ever really that much better, or is Caleb Johnson just on an all-time heater? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because the passing game isn't like the passing game. I mean, they were okay passing the ball against UCLA, but like it hasn't really developed the passing game.
No, I agree. I think essentially the offense, Caleb Johnson is an anomaly. Yes. Otherwise, you take Caleb Johnson out of the picture, it's the same offense we've been seeing for years. It's not good. But the concerning part, that doesn't surprise me. It's the concerning part is the regression of this defense.
Yes.
And that's where that's what makes me scared.
Yeah, I totally agree. All right. Any other thoughts on Iowa and UCLA before we move on?
Nope, I think that's it.
All right. Next up, we had the number 1 Oregon Ducks 39, the Maryland Terrapins 18. So Dylan Gabriel broke Case Keenum's TD record with a 3-yard scoring pass to offensive lineman Jernoris Wilson. So how about that? Offensive lineman gets to score the big touchdown, and he'll be in the record books now as the guy who caught the touchdown to give Dylan Gabriel the record. So that's fun. Star wide receiver Tez Johnson did not play in this game and looks to be out for a while. Afterwards, Oregon coach Dan Lanning said, quote, "We didn't play as well as we could. There's not doubt about that. This one, we've got some growing moments, so we're going to learn from it," close quote. At one point, John, Maryland trailed just 14-10 in this game. So the Terrapins were very much in this thing in the first half. But Oregon scored before half to make it 21-10, and they cruised to victory from there. Oregon QB Dylan Gabriel was 23 for 34 for just 183 yards, 5.4 yards per attempt, but he did have 3 TDs and 0 picks. So not his best game, but it definitely wasn't bad either. Backup running back Noah Whittington led the way with 77 yards rushing on nearly 6 yards per rush. And wide receiver Evan Stewart and tight end Terrence Ferguson each had 6 catches for 55 and 35 yards respectively. Each also had a TD. Defensive end Jordan Birch, though, had 3 tackles, a sack, 2 passes defended, and he ran the ball 36 yards on a fake punt and looked awesome doing it.
Yeah.
Looked so fast. How fast is that guy?
I know. It was crazy.
I was like, what position does he play? Is that a slot back? Like, what are we talking about? Yeah, it was wild, man. So big day for the star D end. And then for Maryland, Billy Edwards completed just half of his passes, 22 for 44 for 206 yards, just 4.7 yards per attempt, 1 TD, and 2 devastating picks. Maryland couldn't run the ball at all, per usual. Wide receiver Ty Felton had 7 catches for 72 yards. So, John, what'd you think about this one?
Yeah, the first half, I thought Maryland might make this a game. It really looked that way.
Yeah, it looked like it for like a quarter and a half.
Yeah, I mean, it was clear Oregon was, probably going to be in control the whole game, but it might be one of those games where, like, they were trading shots every once in a while. Oregon would always maintain the lead, but, maybe put a little scare into the Ducks.
Yep.
But it didn't work out that way, obviously, because it went downhill pretty quickly. And for me, the key to this was just Oregon's defense was in the face of Billy Edwards all game. Yeah. He couldn't catch his breath, couldn't do anything. And this is the problem we talked about with Mike Loxley's offensive lines. Like every quarterback he's had, and thankfully he had Talia. Well, Billy Edwards is not Talia. No. And he, and even Talia had trouble, sometimes like getting zero protection. And Billy Edwards was getting nailed. He was getting pressured. There were people in his face every freaking down. And it was very evident. So Oregon's defense and their pass rush was outstanding, just absolutely outstanding. And obviously caused him to make some very terrible mistakes as well. And just, again, lack of running game, like you already said. And Oregon, they looked like they were starting a little sluggish, like we've seen them do a couple times, early in the season. But it seems like once they started going up tempo, that was it. Like that was game over. Like he got Dylan Gabriel and Noah Whittingham got into a rhythm, and it was just that was it. It was all downhill from there for the Maryland Terrapins and Oregon just absolutely dominating them. So yeah, it was an impressive win. I don't know where Oregon recruits this much speed everywhere. Even the offensive lineman that caught that TD pass was moving real well.
They're fast.
It was crazy. I was like, this guy, he looks like he could be a tight end. And it was terrifying. So I don't know. I don't know who's going to stop this Oregon Ducks team. Obviously, I didn't think it was going to be Maryland, but yeah, I mean, they're just continuing to win in convincing fashion, and it's impressive.
It is. I will say, though, Oregon finally didn't play well. They won easily, but they didn't play well. So it's possible for them to have a bad game. That should give hope to the rest of the nation that Oregon is not infallible. The Ducks are still number one for a reason, and I don't see them losing until the Big Ten title game at the earliest. But I think that we've now seen that you can poke a hole in that balloon. And I think on the right day, you can get Oregon if if you're a good enough team. Not if you're Maryland, but if you're an elite enough team, Oregon's gettable is what I'm saying. They're not they're not going to be they're not on a baton death march to a Big Ten title. They might win the Big Ten, but it's not a sure thing.
Yeah, I think like we talked about, like I mentioned, like about how once they got up tempo and they got into that rhythm, if you can knock them off schedule, they're beatable.
Yeah.
But you need the talent to be able to do that. And obviously Maryland's not that. And most teams in the country are not
almost
that.
Nobody's that. Yeah.
Yeah. But if you can, yes, I think they're fallible. And I think they could be, you could catch them in that way. But it's tough. It's tough to knock them down. Dylan Gabriel is he's an elite quarterback. Obviously they have elite running backs, their offensive line, the defensive line. I mean, there's talent all over that field. So,
they're deep. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's gonna be tough out for anybody, no matter who you are.
Yep. All right, moving right along. We had the number 2 Ohio State Buckeyes 45, the Purdue Boilermakers 0. I don't really have a lot to say about this game. Purdue is the worst team in the Big Ten, and Ohio State is the number 2 team in the country and might be the best team in the Big Ten when all is said and done. I predicted this would not be a game, and it wasn't. It was a public beating. So let's get right to the stats. Ohio State QB Will Howard was 21 of 26, 260 yards, 10 yards per attempt, 3 TDs, and 0 picks. So really good game from him. Running back Travion Henderson had 6 carries for 85 yards and a TD, so really explosive. And wide receiver Jeremiah Smith had 6 catches for 87 yards, while wide receiver Carnell Tate had 6 for 56. On the Purdue side, QB Hudson Card was just 9 for 19, 108 yards, 5.7 yards per attempt, 0 TDs, and a pick for a QBR of just 19.2. That's brutal. Running back Devin Mockabee had an okay day with 73 yards on 5.6 yards per rush, but it just wasn't nearly enough to make up for the total lack of a passing game. John, what'd you think about this beating?
Dude, here's the thing. And I know, like, I've been such a big Hudson Card fan, and to be honest, man, I still am. It breaks my heart to see him play on a team like this because I swear to God, I 100% still believe that if he was if he had better personnel around him and a better coach, I think he'd be in like the top half of quarterbacks in the Big Ten if he was on a better team. I'm not saying he'd be, Dylan Gabriel or anything like that, but I think he would be he would look much better than what he is because this man is running for his life every down. He's doing everything he can. You see the desperation. He's just killing himself out there, and he is getting little to no help. Devin Mockabee gives him a little bit of help every once in a while, and he does his best. But like Devin Mockabee's not an elite running back. He's good. He's serviceable, but he's a good running back, but he's not great. So this team is a mess. Honestly, if I were a Boilermakers fan, I'd want Ryan Walters gone yesterday.
Yeah.
And I think he does need to go. I mean, I know we discussed it earlier in the season, but at this point, dude, I don't know if you're going to win another game. I really
They're
don't.
headed for 1-11.
That's insane. And that's insane.
Who are
That's
they going to beat? They're
unacceptable.
not going to beat Indiana
No.
for
No.
sure. Let's see who else is even on their schedule.
It's
because I remember looking at their schedule and thinking there's no way
they play Northwestern, Indiana, and then Michigan to finish the season.
Oh, okay. Well,
so Northwestern is
gettable. Yeah. So we're talking 1-11, 2-10 in year 2.
I'm sorry. That I am mistaken. I pulled up the wrong schedule.
Okay.
In 1 second, let me pull that up. No, they're not winning another game. Penn State, Michigan State, Indiana.
I guess theoretically they could beat Sparty. No, they're going 1-11.
I mean, if they play the way they did against Illinois,
maybe if Aiden Childs throws 4 picks, which is possible.
That's the only way. Which is possible.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, Ryan. So Ryan Walters is going 1-11, 2-10 at the best, and that's in year 2. I don't know, man. Yeah, I just think the Ryan Walters experiment has been a failed one. And when you look across the state at what their rivals Indiana are doing, I got to think that there's got to be a lot of pressure at Purdue to make a move. So it'll be really interesting to see if they do fire and move on from Walters, or if they give him a 3rd year, because coaches often get 3 years to prove if they've done anything. So if they're going to do anything. So I don't see a point in giving him another year. I feel like we know how it's going to go, but I don't know what Purdue's planning to do.
Yeah, no, we don't know. I think it would be a mistake. I think, like we've said before, in this age of college football, if there's not some level of improvement in year 2, this is, or see some kind of future. I mean, this is just getting worse and worse and worse every week. And
they're not competitive.
They're not.
Other than they had 2 games, I guess, against Illinois and Northwestern, they were competitive.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's it. That's it all year.
Yep.
So, yeah, I don't know, man. It's a tough situation in West Lafayette.
Yeah. But look, Ohio State did exactly what they should have done.
Yes.
And moving on, so.
Yeah, Ohio State has a layup against Northwestern next week before their big showdown with number 5 Indiana, and that's going to be a wildly intriguing game. But it's not for 2 weeks, so we're not going to talk about it a bunch now. But when that comes around, that's going to be a really intriguing game.
I want to mention just one thing though, is because preseason, you and I think everyone else was on board thinking that Oregon and Ohio State was going to be the biggest game of the season.
Yeah,
I don't think that's true anymore.
No,
at least not until maybe the Big Ten championship game. I think now, obviously, the more the intrigue surrounding Indiana and Ohio State is going to be the biggest, most anticipated game of the season, because nobody saw this coming, so I can't blame us or anybody for not seeing this.
Yeah,
but I'm more excited for this than I was for the Oregon Ohio State game. Period.
Absolutely, I'm more excited, dude. I thought I was so bullish on Signetti. I was like, Indiana's going to win 7 games. And everyone's like, whoa, that's crazy, man. And I was like, I think they're good. But I didn't think they were an unstoppable juggernaut.
I didn't either.
It's but we'll get to Indiana today.
Yeah.
Ohio State, Ohio State, I just want to see them figure stuff out on the defensive or on the offensive line and have that come through in the next couple of games.
Yeah.
So that, because they're going to have to be clicking on all cylinders if they're going to beat Indiana, they're going to have to really be on their game.
Well, and it's interesting with Ohio State this year too. It's even in this game, there were a couple moments, not, obviously what didn't make a freaking difference in the world, but there's just something about this team that seems off,
Yeah.
I can't put my finger on it, but there's just moments where it's they just don't look good, there's a series where you're like, what is this? But then obviously they go back to, being amazing. But it doesn't look like to be honest, it just doesn't look like a national title winning team like I thought it was going to. It just doesn't.
I thought they were going to be by far the best team in the country. But John, is there a team that looks like there's nobody who looks like Michigan last year or Georgia the year before?
And
you know what I mean? Nobody looks like that.
Nobody really does. Oregon is the closest, I guess I could.
Oregon is the closest, but Ohio State nearly beat Oregon.
Yep.
I mean, let's be real, they were 1 second from beating Oregon.
Yep. So I'm with you, man. I like I said, I think Oregon is the closest you can get to it, but yeah, there's no team, not one that looks like an absolute world beater. There are problems somewhere in every single one, even the most elite. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting playoff, dude. Actually, this is making the intrigue around the 12-team playoff even, more exciting. So I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. All right. Next up, we had another beating. The number 4 Penn State Nittany Lions 35, the Washington Huskies 6. This was lopsided from start to finish. Penn State led 7-0 after 1 quarter, 28-0 at half, and won the game 35-6. Washington was never in this game from the jump on. Penn State QB Drew Aller was 20 of 28 for 220 yards, a solid nearly 8 yards per attempt, 1 TD, and 0 picks for a scorching hot QBR of 94.1. Impressive stuff. Katron Allen led the way with 98 yards rushing on nearly 5 yards a carry, and Corey Smith and Nicholas Singleton had 95 and 45 yards rushing respectively to add to that total. Wide receiver Harrison Wallace had a really nice day with 84 yards on 5 catches. So they actually got a top wide receiver day from a wide receiver. So it's nice when Penn State does that. It doesn't always happen. All-world tight end Tyler Warren had 8 catches for 75 yards. Warren did lose a fumble in this game, but that's about all that went wrong for Penn State in this one. Star D end Abdul Carter, though, man, he's a wrecking ball. He had 6 tackles, 2 sacks, and 4 tackles for loss. He's an absolute menace for opposing QBs. I mean, Abdul Carter is just a special player, man. I don't know what to say about him. He's the best. I think he's the best defensive lineman in the Big Ten. Full stop. And it's his first year playing defensive line. He was a linebacker before this. So it's crazy that he's having the year that he's having. Washington QBs struggled, whether it was Will Rogers or Damon Williams. I'm hearing rumors that Washington might bench Rogers for Williams, but I don't really think that fixes that much.
Mm-hmm.
You have to pay attention to it, of course, and see if it happens. And Williams obviously has he's fast, so that brings a different element to the offense. But I don't know, man. Washington couldn't run or throw the ball in this one. Running back Jonah Coleman was shut down, as were star wide receivers Denzel Boston and Giles Jackson. So, John, what'd you think about this one?
Well, just when I thought, again, that Penn State might, regress and look even more beatable right before we play them, they just proved me absolutely wrong. And look insane and solid everywhere. So that's great. Good for you, Penn State fans. Congratulations on that. Now it's really got me scared. But to focus on this game, Drew Aller, man, and it's not – Drew Aller was able to look this good because of his offensive line. The pass protection couldn't have been better. It just couldn't have been. Yep. There was no pressure. He had a million years to do whatever the heck he wanted in that pocket. It was stellar. And same thing with the run blocking, I thought was really solid. What more can you say about Tyler Warren other than he's a freaking dude? And there is no contest as to who the best tight end in the country is. I mean, he could be one of the most all-around best, better athletes in the entire country at this point with what he's capable of doing.
Oh, he's unbelievable.
Insane. Yeah. So, Penn State they look incredible. And defensively, it's not just the fact that they have Abdul Carter, who is obviously a stud and terrifying. It's that this defense is so sound. Yeah. They are never out of position. They're always where they need to be. And that's what made it impossible to be able to run or throw the ball on them. They just didn't make mistakes at all. The entire game, it was almost flawless is from what I could tell. And And Washington is not a bad team. Like, there's a lot of talent on
No,
there.
they have. I mean, Jonah Coleman, Jackson, and
Boston and
Boston. Those guys can all play and produce.
and Will Rogers is a good quarterback.
Yes.
Like, but they just absolutely shut these guys down, and it looked pretty easy. So
yeah.
I Penn State is rolling right now. If they can keep playing like this, it's what do they got here?
They're going to be hosting a playoff game if they keep playing like this.
Absolutely, and they should.
Yeah.
Imagine that. Imagine a playoff game in
a whiteout playoff game.
Oh, dude, it would be insane.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
I'd love to see an SEC team have to come up and play in Happy Valley in the cold in front of a whiteout crowd.
Dude, it would be wild.
They'd be like, incredible. You think the SEC is loud? It's not loud like Beaver Stadium at a whiteout.
No, it's deafening.
Yeah,
it's
you can't hear yourself think.
No,
I've never experienced. I've been to a lot of games. I've seen Michigan, Ohio State at the Shoe, and nothing was close to the level of volume at a Penn State whiteout.
Nope, I've never experienced that either. When I was there for the Auburn game a few years ago. So
hey, how about Penn State defensive coordinator Tom Allen?
Yes. Oh yeah, we were talking about that. Absolutely. Who is having a better time right now, other than maybe Coach Ignetti? Than Tom Allen. He's got to be living his best life.
He is, and he's doing a great job.
Yeah.
The Penn State defense has been more consistent than they were under Matty Diaz.
Yep.
And they were great under Matty Diaz. So, James Franklin continues to put out just legit defenses, and the offense seems like it's rounding into form too. Yep. So, Penn State's dangerous, man.
Yeah, they're
They're a dangerous team. They could go on a real run here.
Yep, I really think so too. I mean, and people said it. I think people saw that this is a possibility with Penn State, and they seem to be putting it together in November when it matters. So it'll be exciting moving forward, man. They're definitely a contender at this point in time. Good for them.
Yeah. And Washington will have a really interesting game against UCLA to see who can make a bowl game.
Yeah. Who would have thought?
So Jed Fish has this Washington team in good position for year one still.
Oh yeah, I think so too. I wouldn't be too down on this team. I wouldn't be down on UCLA either with Deshaun Foster or Jed Fish. I think at this time with what they had to deal with, they're doing a fine job.
Yeah, both guys.
Be optimistic.
Yeah, both guys doing a good job in year one for sure. Yeah. All right, next up we have the number 5 Indiana Hoosiers 20. Number 5. The Michigan Wolverines 15. So, John, before Saturday, Indiana had never won 10 games in program history, and now they don't just have 10 wins, they're 10-0. It is truly a magical season in Bloomington. This is the biggest Cinderella season in college football this century. I would say it's the biggest Cinderella season in the Big Ten since 1995 Northwestern.
Yep. Yeah.
That was the last time when they made the Rose Bowl. That was the last time that a team truly came out of nowhere and just dominated like they have. So first off, I want to say that multiple people gave me a hard time for predicting that this would be a 1-score Indiana win. People thought this was going to be lopsided, but I had a feeling it would be close, and it ended up being a very close game. So I did predict too many points in this one, but the game played out pretty close to how I envisioned it. So I'm just going to pat myself on the back for that. Indiana played a great first half offensively, but then they needed the defense to carry the day in the second half. Rourke led 2 late drives, one for a field goal, the other to run out the clock to help Indiana escape with the victory. Afterwards, Indiana coach Curt Cignetti said, quote, "It tells you a lot about the resiliency of this team, its competitive character. At the end of the day, they all count as one. And you know what? We're going to take the win over Michigan." Close quote. The Wolverines had their worst offensive performance against IU since an Indiana 14-10 victory over Michigan in 1987. Michigan generated just 1 TD in 3 red zone trips and came up a yard short on 4th and 10 with 95 seconds left to play. Michigan head coach Sharon Moore said, quote, "The story of the game is not scoring in the red zone. You can't get down there and have it 1st and 6, 1st and 7, and not score. We weren't getting any movement up front. They executed and we didn't," close quote. Michigan managed just a field goal after picking off Rourke on the 7-yard line early in the second half. It was clear the way the game was going that Sharon Moore needed to go for it on 4th down and get a touchdown. But instead, he kicked a field goal and ultimately came up 5 points short in this game. So he should have gone for it, and I won't back off that opinion at all. Moore does not seem to have great in-game coaching instincts, in my opinion. He's got to understand the way a game is going and realize when his team needed 7 points and not 3. Because they were down, he kicked a field goal to put them still down 2 scores.
Yeah.
Like in a game where their offense was struggling, and like Michigan's offense has been struggling all year, but it's like you got to get 7 points. You get, it's 4th and goal from the one of the two. You have to get 7 points there. You have to. Later, Michigan had a chance to tie the score after Khalil Mullings converted a 4th and goal from the 1-yard line, but Warren's 2-point conversion went through a defender's hands and out of the end zone. So once again, I think Moore made a mistake. Michigan's passing game was and is terrible. They were finally running the ball a little bit. They should have run the ball in the 2-point try, in my opinion. Maybe not like right up the middle. Maybe it's like you fake up the middle and do a toss or something to the side and try to get Mullings in space or something. But like Davis Warren, man, is not having a good game. I don't know why you think he's going to complete a pass when you need him to. You treat him like he's a quarterback who's got that in him, and he just doesn't. So I just thought that was a bad idea.
Yeah.
Indiana QB Curtis Rourke had an okay performance for him, going 17 for 28, 206 yards, 2 TDs, and 1 pick for a QBR of just 44.3. So not terrible, but definitely his least impressive performance this season. Indiana running backs Tyson Lawton and Justice Ellison were largely shut down, and star wide receiver Elijah Surratt had just 1 catch, although it went for 36 yards and a touchdown. With Surratt largely kept in check, the Hoosiers got 70 yards on 6 catches from Keyshawn Williams, while Omar Cooper chipped in 3 for 53 and a touchdown. I promise I can talk. I don't know why the syllables aren't coming out right. Oh, all right. Linebacker Aiden Fisher also had 14 tackles. Dude was everywhere. John, what do you think about this game and the 10-0 Indiana Hoosiers?
Well, Michigan continues to disappoint and look awful, and it is mind-boggling how the defending national champions can fall so far.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
It's absolutely insane. But what they did do is that they showed that Indiana can, there are some flaws here. There's definitely things you can do to slow them down. Maybe not stop them, but slow them down. And they were able to do that in the second half. Now the problem was,
especially on the line of scrimmage.
Yes, and that's exactly it. Yeah, the defensive line, Michigan's defensive line showed up in the second half, and they were getting in, pressuring Curtis Rourke the whole game, and were able to. And I've never seen him get hit this much in a game this whole season.
Yeah,
but it took them until the second half to get there. That's the problem. And Indiana already put up enough points. They put up 17 points in the first half, and Michigan had to play catch up. And with Michigan's offense, that's a really tough thing to do.
Yeah.
So that's really what it came down to, is that Indiana started out hot, as they have been all season. Michigan, yes, they adjusted on the defensive side of the ball eventually, but it was too little too late, and their offense can't get anything going. So, I don't know what's going on at Michigan. I don't know what they're planning on doing or actively trying to do now to fix anything. They have so much they're going to have to do in the offseason. It's crazy. I never thought that I'd be looking at Michigan as one of the biggest problematic teams that is going to have to go all out in the offseason to just basically like start over. I mean, that's to me what it looks like in a lot of ways. There's nobody here.
I mean, they need a quarterback and 2 wide receivers in the portal.
Yeah.
To start with.
Just to start.
Yes.
Amongst, a million other things now. But
yeah.
But Indiana, look, I got to applaud them for holding on. for not just rolling over and dying in the second half like we've seen other teams before. So there's definitely some fight here. There's some grit to this team. Maybe it was a test that they needed moving forward to play Ohio State because they're gonna need it. So in a way, facing a defense that was able to do what they were able to do against this high-powered Indiana offense, maybe that's, it gives them, they needed a little punch in the mouth, and wake them up and know that we can't just roll through teams, and we don't have the luxury of just assuming we're going to do what we've been doing to every team. So yeah, I think it was a good win. It wasn't pretty, but I at the end of the day, though, I do think that this was actually probably good for Indiana in the long run, even though it does show that they're mortal.
Yeah, totally. Michigan is 5-5. They won the national title last year, and they should be 4-6 because we both know they got handed the game by the refs against Minnesota.
Yep.
So they're 5-5, and they're probably going to beat Northwestern and avoid missing a bowl, but there's no way they're going to beat Ohio State in the game.
Never.
Not going to happen.
Nope.
So Michigan is going to follow up a national title winning national championship season going 6-6.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. That's such a fall from grace. And it's an indictment of Sharon Moore, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And Sharon Moore, it's not just yes, is it mostly that he thought Alex Orji could be the quarterback and he couldn't? Yes, that's a big part of it. But the wide receiver thing is a problem too. And again, just the decision making. Like I said, not going for that touchdown, not running the ball on the 2-point conversion, doing he just makes weird in-game decisions where you're just kind of sitting there what are you, it's like he's making decisions like he's not watching the game sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I don't really understand that. So a national title winner should never be in danger of missing a bowl the next year, especially the way Michigan recruits. But here we are with the Wolverines and Sharon Moore. And I gotta be honest, man, you said it's time for Ryan Walters to go. I know it's year one, but I would be cutting bait with Sharon Moore.
Yeah.
I would be moving on. He had his chance. He had everything set up for him. He got to bring in and, mold the team in his image. He got to build off of Harbaugh's awesome program.
Yep.
And this is the result.
Yeah.
So it's maybe next year they get a good quarterback or a good wide receiver or two and they look a little better and they win more games. But the coaching problems are still going to be there.
Yeah.
And I don't know, man. I just don't buy it with Sharon Moore. So I think he's going to get another year. I don't think Michigan wants to fire him because he's a Michigan man. And that means sometimes more than anything at Michigan. So I think he's going to get another year, but I don't know if he should.
If he does, I'm not sure he's going to survive the entire year.
Yeah.
I just don't see it either. I'm with you. I think he definitely is the problem. The fact that he didn't see, I know we've been over this, and we're not alone. A lot of other people have talked about this on other podcasts or whatever. The fact that he did not recruit a portal or get a portal quarterback is absolutely
He
insane.
watched Alex Orji every practice and thought he could be the guy.
Yep.
And he's not even close. Not even close to being able to be the guy.
Yep.
So
Davis Warren is your best option. That says it all.
That's rough. Davis Warren is not good, man. I'm telling you what, if Davis Warren could hit the broadside of a barn on a regular basis, Indiana loses on Saturday.
Yeah.
Because Michigan had receivers open.
Yep.
He just couldn't hit them. Could not.
Yep.
So yeah, man, it's tough times in Ann Arbor. And I guess, I think Michigan fans are mostly checked out and still riding high off that national title appearance last year. But if Sharon Moore comes back and has another subpar year next year, I'm with you. I don't think he survives to the end of the season.
Nor should he. At a program like Michigan, that's not acceptable. Period.
No, they recruit at a top 15 level, 10 to 15 level every year.
Yep.
If you have that kind of talent, you should win a minimum of 9 games every year.
Mm-hmm.
You just should.
Totally agree.
All right. And that's it. That's all the games.
Wonderful.
This was a great pod. We got
the
one more.
rest of the night was great. It was great, right?
Yeah. I think it all went according to plan.
Yep.
There weren't anything terrible happen. Okay. Last game. The Rutgers Scarlet Knights 26, the Minnesota Golden Gophers 19. Rutgers QB Ethan Kaliakmanis had a huge first half, and Rutgers held on to upset Minnesota on Saturday. Minnesota committed errors throughout the game, including an inexcusable late-game fumble from tight end Jamison Gears deep in Minnesota territory. That fumble gave Rutgers an unbelievably short field to score the go-ahead touchdown. Before that, Minnesota seemed headed to a fifth straight win. Max Brosmer hit running back Marcus Major on a 17-yard TD pass to start the second half to put the Gophers ahead 16-14. After that, the Gophers pitched a shutout until Gears' bizarre fumble where he didn't tuck the ball away for reasons best known only to him and gave Rutgers a very short field. Then on the Gophers, after they gave that away and gave the lead away on the next possession, QB Max Brosmer was sacked for a safety to push the lead to 23-16. Jai Patel added a 22-yard field goal for Rutgers. Minnesota scored a field goal, but the onside kick was pathetically awful. It was like the worst attempt at an onside kick I've ever seen. And Rutgers recovered and ran the clock out on the formerly red-hot Gophers. Rutgers QB Ethan Kaliakmanis only finished 17 for 33 for 240 yards, but most of the completions came in the first half. He threw for 3 TDs and 1 interception. Rutgers ran the ball okay in the second half with Raymond and Benjamin, and Ian Strong led Rutgers in receiving with 4 catches for 89 yards and a TD. Well, top wide receiver Demir Miller had 5 for 58 and 2 TDs. Gophers QB Max Brosmer finished just 27 for 45, 262 yards, 5.8 yards per attempt, 1 TD, and 0 picks. Minnesota star running back Darius Taylor was not his usual self, as he forced 0 missed tackles, had 10 carries for just 28 yards. Darius was clearly playing hurt, and I blame Minnesota's coaching staff for refusing to pull him from this game. Once it became clear Taylor was hobbled, Minnesota should have pulled him and given his touches to Marcus Major. Yep. Taylor's a great player, but he wasn't in himself, and it's on the coaching staff to see that and replace him. I cannot understand why they didn't do that. If we could see him not being himself, then there's no way they couldn't see him not being himself. Marcus Major got just 2 carries in the game for 9 yards.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say it should have been Major and Mangum who should have been taking the vast majority of carries at that.
Yes, I love Darius Taylor. He's phenomenal. But when you're hurt enough, when you're hurt so much, sometimes you got to just sit out a game and get better.
Yep.
And Darius Taylor should have sat out and tried to get better and I mean, Monangai didn't play for Rutgers, so it wouldn't have been the biggest deal in the world if Darius Taylor wasn't able to play in this game.
Yep.
Tight end Jamison Gears had 8 catches for 73 yards, but his terrible fumble late in the game doomed the Gophers, who had the lead when he coughed it up deep in Minnesota territory. Wide receiver Daniel Jackson had 7 catches for 70 yards, and Elijah Spencer 5 for 61. John, what did you think about this upset?
Well, I think you and I probably think the exact same thing. This is you and I are tired of seeing this happen every year.
Yeah.
More than once a year, which is even more frustrating. There'd be one thing if this was like, all right, there's like 1 letdown game a season. Nope. No. We get blessed with at least 2, sometimes 3 if it's, PJ's feeling like it. And that's what this is. This does to me come back to PJ Fleck not having his players ready to go, not doing, the other thing I guess that was confusing to me as well, not showing up aggressive like we have, like the way we beat Illinois, the way we've beaten every other team, is because of aggressive play on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. Instead, we decided to sit back, play it easy, and just expect, I think, there was an expectation that we were going to just roll through this, and so we can kind of take it easy rolling into the bye week. And then by the time we woke up and, adjusted, it was too little too late, which is such a typical PJ loss. And that's what this was to me. And it's so infuriating. And there were so many things that I think all of us saw that could have been adjusted to a lot earlier in the game. But PJ and company and staff did not they just refused. And the biggest anomaly on this entire season And I know we're not alone in this. I was saying all game that Max Brosmer needed to get rid of the ball earlier, and he did. But
Yeah.
but to defend that is our offensive line was doing nothing for him. They could not pass protect to save their lives against a not a fantastic Rutgers defensive line.
No, not a great defensive line.
And obviously their run blocking was terrible as well. I mean, like Minnesota only had 35 yards on the day rushing, which is insane.
It's terrible.
So
It's abysmal.
Brosmer did what he could with what was going on.
Yeah.
I'm not holding him responsible.
No.
He made mistakes, but at the same time, man, like what are you supposed to do when you're running for your life?
Yeah.
So, and then it wasn't until the second half, like you said, that our defensive coordinator decided to do what he knew would throw Ethan off his game. He knew, since he coached there at Rutgers, knowing what, and probably knew exactly how Ethan plays. And when you throw him off his game, you have to pressure him. And it wasn't until the second half that he started doing that. And then
how did PJ Fleck allow that? How did PJ Fleck not say, hey, we're going to pressure Ethan all game? Because when Ethan was sitting back there with time, he was picking Minnesota apart. And the moment they started blitzing him, he fell apart at the seams because he always falls apart under pressure. We know this about Ethan. So if the Gophers had come out blitzing him in the first half, I don't think that this is even that close of a game.
I agree.
I think that they end up winning an ugly one by 2 scores, probably.
Yeah. And taking Darius out and giving Major and Mangum and even Jordan Newman, like giving them carries, dude. Like, it would have helped. I just think they rely too much on Darius, and I get why. Like everyone understands why. But
Darius was clearly hurt. He was clearly hurt.
Yes, I don't know if he was at 50%, dude. Like it was.
No, he was
bad.
Yeah, it was really bad. And like in warm-ups, sure, maybe you think he can give it a go, but like after a couple carries, when you see him not making guys miss, you have to adjust. And they kept giving him touches late into the fourth quarter. It was just bad. It was just bad, lazy coaching.
Yeah.
And it just felt like arrogance. It felt like PJ thought that we could go vanilla and beat Rutgers. And this is the Big Ten. And unless you're playing Purdue, you better have a game plan.
Yeah.
Or it's not going to go, you know what I mean? You better have a good game plan because everybody can hurt you. Everyone in this league can hurt you.
Well, and one thing that this is just like a random fact, but it pisses me off. This is the first time in program history to the oldest or one of the oldest football programs in all of college football, which is who are the Rutgers Scarlet Knights. First time in their entire existence that they've beaten the University of Minnesota.
Yeah. I think Minnesota had won the last 2 games against Rutgers by like a combined 70-13 or something.
Yeah.
So Minnesota has owned Rutgers. And I think PJ thought that they were just going to own Rutgers and that he wasn't going to have a good scheme and that he could sit back and play conservatively. And like at the end of the first half, he was conservative too. He had a chance. PJ had a chance to call some timeouts and try to score late in the half. But instead he let the time run out, even though the Gophers were behind at the time. That's a bad decision. And it sends a message to your team that you're not being aggressive. And the Gophers have excelled this year when they've been aggressive. Like you think about the end of the first half against Michigan and the 2-minute drill, going down and scoring that touchdown.
Yeah.
Or I would know it was just a field goal, but they went down and scored the field goal and that propelled them into the second half. And it's just like, I don't know. And I don't know why this happens once or twice a season. PJ, who's such a program guy, who his players have such good buy-in in so many ways and do all this good stuff on and off the field. But like 1 or 2 times a year, they just aren't really ready to play.
Yeah.
And the in-game coaching decisions were bad. They were bad as well. So Rutgers is a touchdown dog to a terrible Maryland squad this week. So this was a truly horrendous loss. I mean, you see what Minnesota did to Maryland. And I know the transitive property doesn't work necessarily, but when you think about what Minnesota just did to Maryland, and then you're telling me that Maryland's a favorite over Rutgers, that shows you how limited Rutgers is.
Yeah.
And Rutgers without Kyle Monangai, I mean, they were 1-4 in the conference with Kyle Monangai, and now you're playing a 1-4 team in the Big Ten without their best player.
A true freshman running back.
And you still lose.
Yeah.
And you still lose.
Yep.
And that's just flat out not being ready to play. And like, yes, if Jamison Gears doesn't fumble that ball, they probably win because they had the lead in the ball and they were driving at the time. But
it shouldn't have come down to that one play.
It shouldn't have come down to it.
Yep.
I would argue this is the second worst loss of the PJ Fleck era behind the 2021 Bowling Green debacle. Because they had so much momentum. They had won 4 in a row. They win 5 in a row. They get to 7-3. They're probably ranked going into the bye week, and they're probably ranked hosting Penn State in 2 weeks.
Yeah. And
think how much hype there would have been for that game.
Yeah.
And now you drop one you shouldn't to Rutgers. Instead of being 7-3, you're 6-4. And, you're heading for probably 7-5. I mean, yes. Is that much better? I know Vegas had Minnesota at 4.5 wins. So I guess you can say that they've overachieved those expectations, but those aren't the internal expectations at the University of Minnesota.
And nor should they be, by the way, to anyone out there who is just like, oh, I mean, I'm happy with 7-5. I mean, it was 4.5 by Vegas. Like, who stop caring what Vegas thinks, period, because they're always wrong. Number one, and Vegas doesn't matter. That's not what it means for this program. No. Minnesota should have higher expectations. They should be competing at higher levels. There's no reason they shouldn't be every single freaking year. And to just be okay with 7-5, which, like, again, sure. That's not a bad season. I will admit to that. But with the way the talent that we know we have and the way this team was moving, it is a disappointment. And we should be disappointed. And people should be upset about it. Because this team had the opportunity to go 9-3 and really should have gone 8-4. But now, we might, hopefully we'll get to 7-5. But now,
might not even. It could end up 6-6.
Now everyone's questioning that. Where before, 7-5 seemed guaranteed. Now we're like, oh, great. Now we're back to doubting whether or not we're going to even win the next 2 games. So, And this is PJ, man. He does this to us every year, and it's infuriating, and it is on PJ. I don't care. Spare me with the whole, putting it on the players or the coordinators or whatever. I'm tired of that.
No, this is PJ.
Yeah, we've done that for years. It has been PJ the whole time, and it is PJ now.
Look, I like PJ, and I think he's done a lot to grow this year. He's been more aggressive. Yes. He's relied more on the passing game. He's changed to be a more aggressive defensively. Like, he's shown growth.
Yeah.
But the fact that we still have 1 or 2 games like this every year, even in 2019, they pissed away that game to Iowa and then totally no-showed against Wisconsin.
Yep.
So even when they went 11-2 and finished 10th in the country, they still had 2 games that were, so like, I don't know how it gets. I think, like, the good news is we've seen PJ grow as a coach, and maybe he continues to grow, and we see him get to a point where he doesn't drop these games with such regularity, but it's getting frustrating.
Well, I mean, I texted this to you. PJ Fleck is James Franklin, but with less talent to deal with on a yearly basis.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
And they're very close friends, so that's interesting too.
Yeah. James Franklin is guaranteed to lose you 1 or 2 games every year that he should win.
Yes.
And PJ Fleck is the same. But the difference is James Franklin gets recruits at Penn State that we don't get at Minnesota. So
Penn State's a top 10-ish recruiting school. So, but and I'd argue James Franklin makes worse in-game decisions than PJ Fleck.
You probably, I could see that for sure.
But PJ Fleck does. It's just that weird not having team. It's like it's always a combination of the games he doesn't have a team really ready to play, and the game plan is like weirdly vanilla.
He plays down to the competition.
Thinks he can plays. That's it. Yep. That's it. They play down to the competition.
Every
and Rutgers and Minnesota is significantly better than Rutgers this year. Like, I'm sorry.
It's true.
But they are, especially without Kyle Monangai.
Yeah.
And so to lose that game and to get outplayed the way they did at times in that game, especially in the first half, was just, it was bad. Yeah. It was bad. Well, and it's like, and it's frustrating because it's like, we're so close. We're so close with PJ. We're so close. But then this happens and it feels like we're really far away.
Yeah, he just can't get over the hump, man. And he's been so close for so many years. And it's just like, dude, like, just give us one time, man. Like, just
Just give us a Kurt Signetti once. Just give us a Kurt Signetti and get through it.
I mean, that would be great, but I'm even just saying like let's not just like fumble away 2 games this season. Maybe just 1.
Yeah.
How about that? Like,
yes.
I'll take that. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
All right. And then we lose to teams that maybe we should lose to instead of losing to teams that we shouldn't. That's what I'm tired of. So, but to give credit to
North Carolina, Rutgers. Yeah.
Yep. Last year, Northwestern, Illinois.
Yeah.
But I gotta give props to Ethan. He came out. He clearly wanted this.
Do we have to give props to him?
I don't want to, but I feel like we have to recognize.
He played a really good first half. He played a really good first half.
And you knew he was there to basically give the middle finger to PJ Fleck.
I'm just glad the Gophers get Rutgers at home next year, and I think we're going to beat them by 40.
Yeah.
But that's a whole nother year. So who knows?
Yep, they showed up. And look, man, Shiano's a good coach.
He's a great coach.
And people were saying it, and Kirk Shiraka had 2 weeks to prepare for this game, dude.
Yeah, and Kirk Shiraka off a bye. Kirk Shiraka off a bye is tough always.
Yeah, you knew he was going to come out hot in the first half, and he did. Yeah. So that was it. But PJ, if Darius is hurt, sit him out. We got 2 other really good running backs. Maybe just be more aggressive, like like how you've won every other game. Like maybe do that.
Yeah, for real. They better come out like with their hair on fire against Penn State in a couple weeks.
Yeah, even if we lose that,
if they lose, like I need to see them come out and execute and make it a game.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. But there's still hope for the Gophers. I think they have. It's not a big shot, but I think they might have a shot against Penn State. I mean, obviously after what I saw on Saturday, it doesn't look very likely, but still. But Wisconsin, should be at this point. I know it won't be because it's a rivalry game, but it should be. It's a
rivalry. It'll be a very close, tough game. Yeah. It always is. But that's a game Minnesota should win this year.
I think so too. But we'll see.
If they don't, then we're gonna really criticize PJ.
Yep. And we'll be back in Detroit.
Oh, I'm so sick of Detroit. We've been there. That would be the third time. That would be the third time PJ's been to Detroit.
Like, I love the Music City Bowl, but I want the Duke's Mayo Bowl. I just do. That's where I want to be. So
I want to see PJ get the Mayo bath.
Yes, same.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this was great.
Yay! So if you like to come here when the Gophers lose to hear us be sad, I hope you enjoyed yourself.
Yes, and if you do, please follow, like, subscribe, write us reviews, retweet all of our stuff, man. Get us out there, and you can even quote tweet us and telling how terrible we are and talked about your team. Like, that's great. Do it. We're fine with that.
That's fair.
So again, if you after that now, if you want to find us, you can again find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Podcast Addict. You can find us on Twitter at We Live for B1GSat. You can find Mike at Alibaba26. You can find me, John, at Norwegian Gopher. And again, you can always email us. We Live for Saturday, b1g@gmail.com.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks for listening. I hope you are having a good week out there, and we'll see you in a couple days for the preview episode for week 12. Have a good one, everybody.